So this is something that I've always wanted to ask you. I mean, for years. And it's your relationship with the grunge era. So what was your connection with all of those bands?
Looking back on it, the real connection was not only where we all lived, but the fact that Nancy and I were pretty rebellious inside our own genre. And we had reached the end of our MTV viability. We didn't like it anymore. It was too uncomfortable. And we were saying, we were flipping them the bird.
Hey, thanks for being here. This is another Audacy check-in, and my name is Jason Bailey. And Wilson of Heart is back at it again with the new release of This Is Now, which is the focus track off the new album, which comes out on the 29th of September, Another Door. And Wilson, how are you?
I'm deluxe. Thank you very much for having me.
No, this is great. Let's talk about the album before we get into all the other stuff. And this album's all original material, which you haven't done for a minute. I mean, this is, again,
right,
going back to your roots for the most part, right?
Yeah. And on these bunch of songs, I was the sole lyricist, and I worked on the music with these fine musicians that are in my band right now. And we just had a blast. It took us a while, but we got her done,
Yeah. Do you get like deja vu? I mean, I hate to keep referring to the past, but you've been doing it for so long and you've been doing it so well for so long. I find it hard to believe that anytime you were to go into a studio, like for this album, Another Door, you don't kind of reminisce of a past experience that you had, maybe during a Barracuda or Magic Mirror, something like that, and go, God, this reminds me of, and use that as inspiration for this record right here.
No, each record is a whole different animal unto itself, especially Another Door. I've never had an experience making any other album like the one I just had, making Another Door with these fine musicians. I mean, they really inspired me and challenged me, sort of kicked my ass,
Did they?
And that's what I need.
Yeah. How does one kick Ann Wilson's ass? Please explain.
Well, just by being really good and by not falling into the old cliches and doing all the old stuff that is tried and true and proven, by trying to cut some new ground.
One of my, as a fan, coolest moments watching you and your sister perform was when you did it in front of the guys in Led Zeppelin, and you did Stairway, and to watch Robert Plant cry, I mean, when somebody's doing, Stairway to Heaven, which is crazy. I read in an interview that afterwards he gave you some advice, and that night kind of sticks out. I know it was like about 10 years ago, but that night sticks out for a lot of fans. How important was that night and that piece of advice for you as an artist?
Well, I'll tell you, it was really important because it let me off the hook about it. And he did say that he wasn't real fond of when everybody tries to cover Stairway to Heaven. He doesn't really like. In fact, he always hates it. But he liked our version. And I think that was probably because we stayed true to the spirit of the song. We didn't try and make it be anything other than what it really is, which is holy, really.
Now more than ever, we know how the world is. Like with Another Door, if you're sitting there writing lyrics, do you go, are people going to misinterpret what I'm trying to get across, because the mindset has changed?
I'll tell you, there were a couple of moments when I showed pages of lyrics to the band. They're guys who come from Nashville. We worked in Nashville, right? So they're not country, but they're old-fashioned boys. And so I showed them pages of lyrics, and a couple of times they would balk at a word, like it was just too forward, a little bit too graphic for them,
Did you struggle with that earlier in your career with any of your lyrics or message? Obviously times change, decades change, and mindsets change. but the direction, did people come at you? I mean, I can only imagine being a woman in the rock world, 70s, 80s, 90s even, and having to fight for your spot, in which you and your sister both did so well. But the message coming from that angle, did people try to stray and push you away from that?
Yeah, I think that people used to misinterpret us a lot. Um, the only real image for rock women that people understood at that time was like the, Lita Ford type, real sexy kind of porn girl image.
Mhm.
And Nancy and I have never been that. We've always been more down to earth gals that you could go camping with. So I think in the early days, there was a lot of misinterpretation going on. And especially in the 80s, they really wanted Nancy to be uh, the front and center, wearing almost no clothes, jumping off the cliff with a guitar.
Mhm.
So she had to go through a lot of that.
And there was only a handful of women that were making noise in the business, especially the rock world. Those times the genres were muddled a little bit, obviously not like they are now and so compartmentalized. But that you were a godsend to MTV because you have two women up on stage making great music, right?
Yeah, I don't know whether the woman thing in rock was the chicken or the egg, because for a long time, women didn't even attempt to enter the rock scene because it was just too hard. I mean, nobody took you seriously. Nobody gave you any credibility. So you didn't even try. But once a few of us, kicked the door open enough to squeeze through, um, more and more women started to come in and see that it was okay and you could do it. But it's a struggle
Yeah.
because you're always going to be misinterpreted.
So this is something that I've always wanted to ask you. I mean, for years, and it's your relationship with the grunge era. So, what was your connection with all of those bands outside of other than you being in Seattle, living in Seattle? But you had a bigger connection, a stronger connection, right?
Yeah, I think looking back on it, the real connection was not only where we all lived, but the fact that Nancy and I were pretty rebellious inside our own genre, and we had reached the end of our MTV viability. We didn't like it anymore. It was too uncomfortable, and we were flipping them the bird and saying we don't want to do this anymore. And a lot of the grunge guys love that attitude. I mean, that's their favorite attitude.
Are there any recordings out there of Ann Wilson playing with any grunge band recorded that probably will never see the light of day?
Well, yeah, there are, but I think they've seen the light of day. One of them is I've sung on a couple of Alice in Chains albums, um, Sap, and I sang on Brother, and I sang on another song. Oh yeah, The Rooster, and let's see. Oh yeah, there's a tape somewhere of Chris Cornell singing "Wild Horses," the Stone song,
Uh,
with me and Nancy in a club. It was gorgeous.
is that out or is that hidden? Somebody has it. One tape. That's it.
Somebody has it, and I think it may be Chris Cornell's estate, because there was a time when they didn't want to put it out because it was too close to his death, and
Oh,
they have it.
well, that's amazing. I love hearing those types of stories. How did you and Chris meet and become so close?
I was working during a break in the Heart Action. I was working in a cabaret show in Seattle called Teatro Zinzani, and it was a circus show, and I played the chanteuse, and they all started coming and seeing that show because it was so surreal. It was clowns and aerial acts and jugglers, and then me singing this chanteuse music, and like Ed Vedder would show up, Chris would show up, one by one, they would tell each other about it and go, God, you got to see this. She's like a singer or something, you know. And so, yeah, that's where we first got to be friends. Was he would come and we'd sit across the table, me wearing this big awful makeup, you know, and just talk. And he was very sensitive, and I always thought he was incredibly funny, darkly funny.
You will be going out back on the road in support of this album, correct? From what I understand.
Yes. Yes.
You will be performing at Farm Aid coming up here, and you'd be playing with the Jim Irsay band. Jim Irsay, the owner of the Indianapolis Colts. You're not an Indianapolis Colts fan. There's no way.
No, I'm a Seahawks fan.
That's right. Of course. I figured you're from Seahawks. So why are we associating? Why are we associating with this Jim Irsay guy?
Well, because he has this amazing collection of stuff, including letters written by Abraham Lincoln, John F. Kennedy's rocking chair. I mean, all this incredible stuff in his collection. And he also has guitars like Jimi Hendrix's guitar, Jimmy Page's guitar. He's got this really, oh, and the piano that John Lennon wrote Strawberry Fields on, and stuff like that, in this massive collection. And so every couple of months, Jim Irsay has a show where he shows off the collection. He gets a big room and he shows off the collection, and he puts a band up on stage that he collects the musicians as if they were artifacts. And I was one of the ones that collected for this show. So when Jim went to go and do Farm Aid, he asked me to come along.
Going back to doing, collaborating and singing with other artists, I loved, Dolly Parton's rock stuff that she just put out. I thought it was so cool, and I'm so glad that she finally got a chance to do something like that. And you were with Dolly on that album. I mean, she did Magic Man, and that must have been a cool experience, right?
It was really cool because Dolly is just exactly what she says she is. I mean, there's no fakery there, nothing like that. She just came in, she was all dressed within just like stuff pinned all over her, and sparkly pants and sparkly sweater and just all this stuff, and huge hair and all that. But was just the sweetest, most dear, loving thing you could imagine. We sang Magic Man together. She had written a little poem for the end of the song that kind of explained her vision of how the mama couldn't understand her daughter running off with the Magic Man, and it was pretty cool. Very down to earth, really great.
And your experience with Dave Draymond with Disturbed, did he seek you out, or did you seek him out, or was it an arranged marriage for Don't Tell Me?
No, they sought me out. They asked me if I'd sing on it, and so I did. I went over to where they were working in Oakland and laid on a vocal. And then later on, they said, "Okay, got to do video." So went down to Maine, was in their video, which they finally got the edit and they didn't really like it, so they're going to reshoot it. So we're going to do that, I think, in October.
Oh, really? What did they not like about it?
I don't know. It's their thing. He had this real specific vision for what he wants it to be, and it's not just some kind of an MTV type video. It's got depth to it, and it's got meat to it and everything.
So I'm going to say this before I let you go. On behalf of the world, I've never spoken on behalf of the world before. On behalf of the world, it's a simple thank you. That's all. You're just tremendous.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks
really
so much.
All right. Ann Wilson, thank you so much for all of your time. Best of luck with the new record. And again, thank you for everything for all of the years. Okay.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciated it.